Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session. Welcome to this highly anticipated study and winning prize session that we have for today. It's great to gather together once more to share knowledge about AWS cloud security. And we're very excited to have you join us on this. Hello, Bimishola. Hello. Who else is on the call? Tell us where you're joining us from. Tell us where you're joining us from. Let us know how it is, how the study session has been so far. These sessions are highly anticipated, and we're very excited that we have the opportunity to share our knowledge with you. On today's session, we're going to continue from where we stopped yesterday. We are going to round off the testing and security automation and then continue with a new topic, which is configuration management and observability on AWS. Don't mind me. The term wants to cut my tongue, but it's all good. So we have the very wonderful David Okeyode, who is going to be the speaker for today. And he is multi-talented, vast in various cloud services. He's oh hello teams. Yes, there is a group for the security user group. We'll share the link to the group. And welcome once again. We'll share the link to our socials for you to connect with us there. If you are just joining us for the first time, welcome. This is a study and win a prize session. In the former sessions, we used to have three winners, but this particular session, we're going to have a winner, just one winner that will go home with a choice prize. And the choice prize is an AWS credit. Imagine what you can do with that AWS credit. So sit tight, pay attention, and listen attentively. Pay attention so that when the question pops, you'll be the one to get the question right and take home that amazing prize, and you can be able to brag with it. Also, we're preparing for AWS Community Day that will come up on the 19th of August 2023 in Lagos State. The proposed venue is Unilag Auditorium, so prepare to attend. Is a hybrid event that's going to be an on in person and then online virtual event. So if you're in Lagos and if you're able to attend, would love to see you there. Would love to meet all of you physically there. We're going to have AWS staff, community leaders join us, AWS experts, cloud experts. It's not limited to AWS. We're going to have various IT experts join us on that day. So watch out and stay tuned to see when the registration is out for you to register and be the first to know what is happening. If you, yes, register and plan to attend in person. And if you are able to, if you're as powerful and as vibrant as some of you that we have on this call, we have a call for paper that is up. Please, if you have an interesting topic that you think you can share with us, share with the audience, do well to apply to be a speaker on that day. We can't wait to see you. But that being said, I will usher in the speaker that we have today. Hello, David. How are you? Are you ready to fire us off with today on today's session?
Hello, Blessing. Hi, how you doing?
I'm great.
Yeah, thanks very much. Really appreciate again the amazing work that you're doing in the community. Thanks very much for the great work, and thanks
Thank
very much for
you.
the introduction also. So yeah, so we're really looking forward, as you said, to the AWS Community Day. It's going to be a very interesting event. So we had like a sort of like a preamble to that last year at the AWS Security sort of like Community Day. However, this year is going to be way much more bigger. So we're expecting lots of people to attend. It's going to be about AI, it's going to be about innovation, it's going to be about security. And we have lots of amazing speakers that have submitted their talks, lots of amazing speakers that that have registered interest to speak. And also we have AWS community manager in Africa that will be there in person in the person of Tembile and Lovo. So it's going
Yes,
to be
I'm
an
Belizwa.
experience. Yeah, and Veliswa, that's true. And Veliswa Boya also be there. So
She's going to be there, yes.
yes, yes. Awesome. So yeah, so for today, I'm ready to go at any time, so that's fine. So I'll share my screen and let's get started. So let's go to share my screen. Okay. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. So as our lovely moderator said earlier, there's going to be a gift to win today. So which will be a $25 credit AWS credit voucher. So at some point, as we go through today's study session, the question is going to come up, and we're going to be selecting a winner that's going to be going on with that prize today. So that being said, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to pick things up from where we stopped yesterday. So yesterday we talked about deployment strategy options, and we talked about deployment configurations. If you do not know what those two are, you do not want to miss the study session yesterday. So go back, watch the video again. You'll get some useful information about what are the different deployment strategy options. So we talked about in-place upgrade. For those that were here yesterday that remembers, we talked about in-place upgrade. We talked about rolling updates. We talked about immutable updates. We talked about blue-green deployments. And we talked about this use and the strategies yesterday, and we talked about when to use each of those strategy, when not to use each of those strategy. For example, if you're concerned about mitigating risk and ensuring availability, you do not want to be using in-place upgrades. So we talked about that. We also talked about how you can implement these different deployment strategy using AWS services like code deploy and using AWS services like Elastic Beanstalk. So again, if you don't know what we're talking about, check out yesterday. So today I'm going to pick things up. We're going to look at DevOps and testing, and then DevOps and security. We're going to see if we're able to get into configuration management and observability. Otherwise, we may just schedule that in another conversation. So let's get started with DevOps and testing. So DevOps changed the way that we deliver software in the enterprise in the modern world. DevOps completely changed that. We don't deliver software the way we used to deliver software 10 years ago. So the implication of that is that we should not be testing software the way we used to test software 10 years ago, because the way we are delivering software has changed fundamentally. The way we are testing software also needs to change. The approach to testing software in the modern world, in the world of DevOps, is the approach of continuous testing. So the previous approach, where the development teams finish building software and then they pass that to a dedicated team of testers that's going to do some validation and then return that back to the development team if there's any issue with that. Those days are over. These days, testing is ongoing, testing is continuous, testing is automated. So you see the example on the screen. We have the development team working on developing the software. As they're working on that, testing is going on. As they're building the software, testing is going on. As they're deploying the software, testing is going on an ongoing basis. If something gets detected, the feedback loop is shortened to the development team so they can fix things quickly and release it back to go through the process. As they're releasing software, testing is happening. So continuous testing is the approach for releasing software in the DevOps world. However, before this can make sense to us, we need to take things back a little bit and understand the value of testing or the different types of testing and the value that they bring to organization. The chart that you're looking at right now on your screen is a chart that was created many years ago So it's from Lisa Crispin's Agile Testing Quadrant. I believe this was released in like 2017. So Lisa Crispin, and she wrote a document called the Agile Testing Quadrant. And the whole idea behind this is to help us to have a structure in how we think about software testing. So, for example, there are certain software tests that are needed, but they are technology facing. So that's number one. We need certain tests that are technology facing. So, in other words, the business doesn't really know that these tests are going on. Those tests are going on a continuous basis, but the business doesn't really need to know about them. But they're very valuable for identifying issues quickly. So those are technology-facing tests. But we also have tests that are business-facing. So for example, at certain points in our software rollout, we probably have to do some user acceptance tests, right? Some user acceptance tests where we have real users use the software to see if it meets the requirements that they were expecting. That's a business-facing test, right? That's something that not just by the development team that's internal, it's actually business-facing. So we have number two, we have business-facing tests. And then number three, we have tests that the feedback of the test is to help the development team to guide the development teams in creating quality software. So we have tests that are designed and created to provide help and guidance to the development team, so supporting the team. And number four, we have tests that are created to critique the product, to really put the product through its pace. Is this product doing what it says it's going to do? So we have all those four different categories of tests. And what Lisa did here is that she put them into four different quadrants. So we have quadrant one, we have quadrant two, we have quadrant three, we have quadrant four. And the idea behind that is that quadrant tests that we have in quadrant one and quadrant two, the main reason for using them is to prevent defects before they reach the users. So prevent defects before they reach the users. And tests that we have in quadrant three and quadrant four is to find, so this one is about prevention. This one is about finding defects in what has been created. So finding defects in what has been created. So they have different use cases. So hopefully that gives you some framework in terms of how you think about software testing. But there's one part to add in that. What exactly do we mean by testing? Testing refers to validation of quality. We want to validate quality. And tests comes in different forms. We have different types of tests. So the challenge is we need to select the tests that will add value to the business and to the software. And we need to integrate these tests into the DevOps workflow. So let's look at some of the types of tests that we have. For example, we have unit tests. Unit test is the first type of test. What is unit test about? Unit test is about checking that a software component does what it's meant to do. So a software component. So it's not about doing end-to-end testing. Here we are just testing a single software component. Blessing has written a new piece of code. The code is meant to update the cart when users are shopping on our website. We test that small piece of code and make sure that that piece of code is working. We don't care about everything else. We just test, is it really updating the cart? So we test that. So that's unit test. Who creates unit tests? The developers themselves are responsible for creating unit tests. because they understand the components that they're writing, so they're responsible for doing that. We have integration tests. Integration test is where we begin to test how the different software components, how they interact with each other. So interaction between software components. That is what integration test is about, between software components. So that is what integration test is about. So in other words, Blessing has written component 1, Mike has written component 2, Susan has written component 3, John has written component 4. We're going to test all of them together and make sure that they are interacting with each other correctly. All these components are interacting with each other correctly. So that is integration test. Who writes integration tests? Integration test is usually written by people that have testing experience. So these are people that have a bit of training in how to properly test software and test how they integrate with each other. So they're usually the ones that are responsible for writing integration tests. Number 3, we have functional tests. To check if you're awake, let's see. So if you put a short description in the chat window of what functional tests are. So someone wants to put a short description in the chat window. What are functional tests? And what are they typically used for? So functional tests and what they are used for. So put something in the chat window. Let me make sure that you're all still awake and you're all still hearing what we're saying. Who writes functional tests? Oh, sorry, what is functional test for? So we're waiting to see. So functional test, what is functional test about? So I cannot see any response yet. So again, you have to be ready. Remember that any of these questions could be the question that leads to the $25 voucher. So you have to be on alert. It's a short study session, so we only have like about 55 minutes or less together. So, okay, I can't see anything about functional test, about anyone putting that in the chat window. So I'll go ahead and I'll talk about what functional test is about. I'm assuming that everyone is still awake. So functional test, what is that about? Functional test is where we perform, does a software meet its required function, right? So does it meet business requirements? What we decided as a business that this software is about to do, is the software doing that? So that is functional test. Then we have functional tests can also include things like regression tests. So regression test is where we check if the code that was just changed, if it does not introduce a bug accidentally. So we can do regression tests as part of functional tests. Functional tests can also include compatibility tests, where we are testing our software in different environments. Does it work in this environment? Does it work in this environment? What about if we change this component, does it still work? So that's compatibility tests. We have performance tests. Performance tests is where we're testing the system under heavy load. So it includes some aspect of load tests or stress tests. We're adding load to the application to see whether it collapses under the load that we're simulating. How long does it take it to respond if we have 500 simultaneous users using the software? How much memory is it using if we have 1,000 users using the software at once? How does the software behave under heavy load? So we stress test it. We have user acceptance tests, and user acceptance test is about, does it meet user requirements? Functional test is, does it meet business requirements? User acceptance test is, does it meet user requirements? We have security test, which is to check for vulnerabilities. We have usability test, which could be a part of user testing. So what is the user experience like? We have exploratory test. Exploratory test is one that is very interesting because exploratory test, you really do not have any objective. It has no objective in terms of what you're trying to achieve. The goal of exploratory test is just use the software anyhow and see if you find something wrong with it. That's the idea. It's more about investigation rather than following a formal test plan. Just explore the software. Add items to the cart. If you're an e-commerce website, add items to the cart, remove them, modify them, delete them, re-add them. Let us see how the software behaves when you just explore and just do whatever you want to do around. So that's the whole idea behind exploratory test. So you can see that we have quite a lot of tests. How does this fit into the DevOps world? Here is an example of how it fits into the DevOps world. So first, like the unit test and some security tests in terms of static code analysis, those can happen in the development stage of the DevOps workflow. When we're building the software and we're doing an automated build, we can automate the practice of integration testing, component testing, regression testing. We're beginning to integrate those types of tests automated as part of our build process. During the stage phase of the DevOps workflow, we're integrating tests like system testing. So system testing is when you do an end-to-end testing and you check every component. Performance testing, load testing, compliance testing, user acceptance testing. We're integrating that in an automated way during the staging phase of our CICD process. And then at production, we're using testing patterns and strategy like A/B testing and canary analysis. So that's how we can begin to fit tests into a DevOps workflow. Oh, okay. I can see that we have some people responding to some of the questions. Let's see. So, okay, Tim says functional test is about based on customer requirements. That is true, Teams, but it's true. But functional test is more about business requirements than business requirements includes user requirements or customer requirements, but it goes beyond that, right? It includes other components that the business may need the software to do. So the user may not need the software to do something, but the business is like, we need the software to do this, even though the customer, this is not like a customer requirement. So functional test goes beyond customer requirements. You're testing all the functionality as defined by the business. Teams, I hope that helps. So let's see. Dave says, testing to see if a feature works fine. To see if a feature works fine, you're probably referring to unit tests. So that is probably unit tests, Dave. So Teams, you're right. So that is business requirements. So I like Abdul Hakim's answer. To ensure that code does what it's meant to do. Every test is to ensure that the code does what it's meant to do. Every single test is tailored towards ensuring. So that is really, really broad, Abdul Hakim. Okay, let's move on very quickly in the interest of time. So now you can see how testing fits into the DevOps workflow. So one of the things to also add when we are talking about testing and DevOps is the importance of replicating our production environment. So this is very important. And one of the things is that cloud makes this easier for us to do. So for example, we have things like our CloudFormation templates, our Terraform templates that we can use to automate the provisioning of infrastructure. And then we can use that to automate our production environment, and we can use it to replicate our production environment for testing. So that's very important. So testing software, you want to make sure that you're testing it in a production-like environment. So create an accurate testing scenario. It's an important one. So what we want to do is we want to allow testing to take place in an environment that resembles production environments. Empower experimentation. If you have an environment that resembles a production environment, then developers are more likely to experiment because they don't have to directly publish the code into the main production environment before they can experiment with thoughts and ideas. So it also makes it easier to debug production issues. So if a bug is reported, they can try to reproduce it in that separate environment without necessarily tinkering with production, and improves code quality because it can speed up feedback to the development team, which is provide a faster feedback loop. So that being said, let's move on and let's talk about security, DevOps and security. So we talked about DevOps and testing, and you've seen how they all fit together. So let's talk about DevOps and security very quickly. So DevOps and security, we're really talking about DevSecOps here. So what is DevSecOps about? You can think about DevSecOps as being, if I go back, we have dev, we have operation. Dev is when code is written or value is created. Ops is when code is running or when value is consumed. What we want to be able to do is to make sure that security is embedded throughout everything, throughout the development stage when value is created, value creation, and throughout the operation stage when value is consumed. So security constantly being assessed, security constantly being validated. DevOps allows us to build software quicker, and it allows us to deploy software quicker. Operations, in terms of keeping the environment that the software is running in stable, security has a role to play in DevOps because security is how we keep everything that we're doing secure. So when we talk about DevSecOps, it's important to know that it's a team effort. DevSecOps is development and security and operations working together to find a way to build software securely. So find a way to build software securely in a way that does not impact how the teams work. So we want to enable the development team to be able to write code and push code quickly, but do it in a secure way. We want the operations to be able to create environment and operate the environment rapidly without introducing any issues. So in order for that to happen, we need to change our security approach. Just like we need to change the way that we test software, we need to change the way that we secure software. So, and one of the key part of that is automation. We now begin to start looking at how do we automate security assessment? How do we automate security response is what this is about. And this is the only way for for security to scale in DevOps. Security has to be automated and security has to be integrated with development and operations in order for it to be able to scale. Otherwise, it's not going to be scalable. So you take a company like WeChat, for example. A company like WeChat, they release code to production about 1,000 times a day. When you're releasing code to production 1,000 times a day, security cannot afford to be a gatekeeper at the end. So just waiting for everybody to finish whatever they're doing, and then I'll look at everything at the end. That's not going to work when you're doing 1,000 times deployment a day. You need something that's baked into the process that's creating all these deployments that you're doing every day. So that's one of the mindset shifts that we need to have. The DevSecOps role, it's not there to audit code. So that does not mean that we now make security people code testers. Hey, security, test this code for me before I release it. That's not what it's about. It's about implementing and controlling the segment to the artifact as part of the CICD process. In other words, security sits down in a meeting room with development and operations and gives trusted advice to say, development, when you're writing your code, here are the best practices that you need to be integrating at that stage. When you're building your code, here are the best practices that you need to be integrating in that stage. When you're about to deploy the code, operations, here are some of the security and best practices that you need to be doing at that stage. But not just stopping there. How do we automate all this so that it does not stop your pace, so that it does not slow you down? How do we jointly automate this together. So that is where the DevSecOps culture comes in. Why does DevSecOps matter? Because we want speed. Organizations want speed, and organizations want security. DevSecOps brings DevOps and security together to go at full speed. So that's one of the reasons why we need DevSecOps, right? Another reason why we need DevSecOps is it's the only way for security to work in a DevOps world. Okay, let's see. Let's move on very quickly. So here are some of the principles of DevSecOps. So number one, collaborate with all stakeholders. So I mentioned this earlier. The cultural aspect of DevSecOps is important. You have to collaborate with people. So DevSecOps probably won't work, or you won't get the best result if you try to force developers to use security tools. It's not going to work. Developers are not security people. They do not come to work excited about securing things. They want to write code and they want to release code quickly. That's what they care about. So you have to collaborate with them and say, how can I help you? I know that you want to write code. I know you want to release the code quickly. How can I help you so that we have security baked into whatever you're doing? So that's the way it's going to work. It has to be a collaborative effort versus a top-down effort. Codify everything. Automation. It's got to be the checks has to be automated. Test everything, validate everything. So again, automate everything. Measure and monitor everything. Deliver business value with continuous feedback. One of the key things that needs to happen if you're implementing DevSecOps is that you need to change how you measure your teams. How do you measure your teams? How do you measure performance in your teams? So a good metric that you can do is you say to your security people, what I'm going to be measuring you on is how quickly you can help developers to deploy their code securely. That is your measurement. So that is a new metric that I'm going to start measuring. Are you helping the development team to get their code out quickly and securely? So you begin to change how people are measured. So now that's going to motivate them to begin to work with developers, to collaborate with them, to make progress in that direction. Okay, so let's see. DevSecOps practices. So DevSecOps practices, here are some of the ways that it looks like. So we have security of the pipeline. So how are we building software? Is that process secure? We want to have that's a practice that you need to put in place. Security in the pipeline. All the different artifacts that you're using, all the different code that you're using, are they secure? You want to start assessing those. Infrastructure automation is a big part of that. So especially, you're talking about something like infrastructure as code. You also want to be assessing the security of your infrastructure as code templates before you roll that out. So in practice, this is what that looks like. These are the different AWS tools to implement DevOps. Here is where security fits in. So the same way that I showed you about how security fits into with testing, here's how security fits into that process. How testing fits in with DevOps. Here's how security fits in with DevOps. So in this case, when you're committing code, you're doing assessment for secrets. When you're building software, you're making sure that you're tagging it, and you're making sure that you're doing assessment also of your security artifacts at the build stage. When you're running your continuous tests, like we talked about previously, you're making sure that you include security as part of your continuous tests that you're doing. When deploying code, you're making sure that you're doing things like registering security components. So a big part of that is SBOM. So making sure that you're generating your SBOM. So, and this leads me, ladies and gentlemen, to My question for you today, you have 30 seconds to answer this question. First person to answer it correctly gets the $25 voucher. I hope you're ready. You have about, okay, I'll give you 45 seconds. What is SBOM? What is SBOM? You have 45 seconds to answer that question. First person to answer it correctly gets the $25 voucher for today. What is SBOM? Ladies and gentlemen, here is your chance. Looking at the chat window. What is SBOM? The question. 45 seconds is approaching. Yeah, I know it's software bill of materials, but what exactly is it? Oh, okay. So no one got that between the time period. So Ayobami says, so SBOM is software bill of materials, but exactly what is it? Okay, so I have to ask you another question then. So let's pause for now. Vulnerability scanning tool to scan code and configuration files. So not at all, Dave. That's not what SBOM is. SBOM is software bill of materials. Ayobami, that's true. But what SBOM is in terms of what the value that it provides is that it gives an inventory of all the components and dependencies that we are using in our code. So that's the idea. So the idea behind that is during my deployment stage, I generate an SBOM for my project. And the idea behind that is if there is like a vulnerability in certain dependencies, I can quickly identify any project that I've deployed that's using that dependency that's vulnerable because I have my SBOM generated and I'm monitoring and tracking that. So SBOM just means we are generating a list, sort of like a list, so if you want to call it that, of all the components and dependencies and their versions that we're using in our code. And we're doing that before deploying the software. Anyways, that means I will need to throw another question to you afterwards. So here is an example of a pipeline with high-level security checks. So in this particular stage, you have like 5 main stages here. You have where code is created and maybe new version is pushed, in this case using S3. You have code pipeline, which is the source code. So that's going to pull that from S3, and then we can go to start deploying. In this case, we're doing that for a CloudFormation template is what we're going to be creating here. So you can see that whenever we commit the changes, we have a Lambda function that we're going to use to assess the CloudFormation template code. We're going to assess the security for the code. So in this case, we create a CloudFormation stack. We also run another assessment to validate that. In this case, we're using Lambda to do that. If that passes the assessment, we approve the test stack, and then we can go ahead and we can roll that out. So that's just an example of that. Okay. So what DevSecOps gives us? It gives us confidence that we're following corporate security policies. It helps us to understand it helps us to avoid situation where we have infrastructure and application failure later in our deployment stage. So we don't want to build, release our code, build our code, and then when it's time to deploy, and then we are like, actually, there's 50 security issues. We need to go back to look at those. As we're writing those code, we need to be detecting and addressing those security issues there. So it's about the pace of innovation. So DevOps keeps its pace of innovation while security is embedded into it. Also, ability to audit and alert and security at scale. Okay, so I'm looking at the time now because I could get into like the infrastructure configuration aspect of things, but I'm looking at the time now. So let's see. Oh, I love Tim's definition. Oh, this is a nice definition. A hash bomb is a nested inventory, a list of ingredients that make up software components. That's an amazing definition, Tim's. That's an amazing um, that's an amazing definition. Okay, so I'm looking at the time now, and I'm not sure that I'll be able to complete like the other one. So I think what I'll do is I'll give you like another quiz question. We'll select a winner, and then we'll pause for today. So let me see. Mm, 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 mm. Mm, mm, mm. Mm, mm. So 1 minute. I'm just checking out. Sorry. Um, so I'm looking at this. Okay. Okay, so here is my question for the quiz for the quiz today to determine who is going to be going home with the prize for today. So, and I'm going to give you, let's see, I'm going to give you 1 minute to do this. So, pay attention to the question very carefully. Pay attention to the question very carefully. So, pay attention to the question. From our conversation today, what are the types of tests that we can integrate at the build stage of a CI/CD pipeline? So I'll put the question in the chat window before I start this. So from our conversation today, what 3 tests can we integrate in the build stage of DevOps? So the first person to answer that correctly or that gets the highest number gets a voucher for today. So you have a minute to give the answer. So today I showed you an example of how testing integrates in a DevOps workflow. So at the build stage, so thanks Ayobami, I can see an answer there. Unit test, that is code analysis and integration test. Let's see what others say. So I can see load test, integration tests, stress or performance tests. So thanks Tolu. So we have 2. So we're going to see who gets the highest. I can see Aaron says we have unit test, integration test, performance tests. Chris says unit tests. And Dennis says that's it. So Dennis, so we've got 4 answers there. So number one thing that we'll do is we're going to have a look at this. So we're going to have a look at the answer, and then I'll see who got the highest mark today, and then we can call it a day for now. So let's see what the answer is first of all. So here is the answer to this question. So we're talking about the build stage and which tests integrate in the build stage. So here we have this. We have integration testing, component testing, regression testing. So let us see who got the highest. So integration, component, regression. So Ayobami says unit, static code, and integration. So Ayobami got 1. Tolu says load, integration, stress, or performance tests. So Tolu also got one. So let's see. Aaron said unit tests, integration tests, performance tests. So that's another one. That's one. Oh my God. Uh, let's see. Chris says unit tests. So no. Then it says regression tests, compatibility tests. Oof. So let's see. Chris says unit test, integration test, functional tests. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. So, anyways, I think we have a tie. We have Ayobami, Tolu, and Aaron getting one each. But the fastest person to respond is Ayobami. So, Ayobami, you're the winner of a $25 voucher for today. So, um, Madam Blessing, do you want to share information on how to claim the prize? And then we can bring this session to a close for today. I'm not sure if Madam Blessing is there. Oh, I cannot. Oh, okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
Hello. Hi. So we have a winner for today. So congratulations, Ayobami. So Ayobami won today. So actually we had a tie. So we had three people that answered within the time that we gave, but they all
Yes, I
got
saw
one
it.
each. Yeah. So Ayobami answered it first. So it goes on with the gifts. So how does
Yes.
Ayobami claim his gift?
Album will send his name. Is Ayobami a female? Ayobami, are you a female or a male? Okay, Ayobami, you send your email, your LinkedIn profile link, and you send an email to our email. I'll share the email
Yeah.
shortly. You send your full name, your LinkedIn profile link, and your Twitter handle. Yes, to our email, which is coming up right away.
So yeah, so congratulations again, Ayobami. Well done. So, and again, just to remind you as we draw this session to a close. So, if you're yet to follow the community meetup page, make sure you follow our community meetup page.
Yes, I dropped the link to our various social media channels.
Yeah,
I'll send it again. I'll
thanks
drop it
very
again.
much.
Please, Ayobami, send an email with your full name, your LinkedIn profile link, and Twitter handle to AWS Cloud Sec West Africa gmail.com.
Oh, is it at gmail.com?
Yes, it's at gmail.com, please.
AWS Security West Africa
No, not this one, not that. The
at
one I'm
Gmail.
sharing. The one I'm sharing, the one on the screen, AWS
Oh,
Cloud
okay.
Sec
Sorry.
West Africa gmail.com. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Apologies for that. Ayobami, make sure you use the Gmail one, send to the Gmail one, not to the Outlook one. So AWS Security West Africa at gmail.com. So send your name, send your LinkedIn profile, your Twitter handle, and we'll get the voucher over to you. So congratulations again. So, okay.
Congratulations, congratulations. Please do well to follow us on our various social media channels. The links are in the chat. So thank you very much, Stevie. Thank you everyone for joining us. And it's very interesting that as short as the time is, we're able to cover so much. Thank you to those. We really appreciate those that took their time to participate actively. It was really very interactive, as though it was like a Zoom call or a Google Meet call. So this is very, very interesting. And it's sad that this study session is almost coming to an end. I think we have just one more week. That's next week. We will still have Monday and Tuesday session. But then do ensure that you pay attention to our social media channels for upcoming events. And please join us in our WhatsApp group. We have a community on WhatsApp where we share information and updates, and you can collaborate in case you have any challenges when you're working in cloud. Also, we share resources from time to time. People share vouchers, people share events, people share things. So it's a great place to be, and it's a great place to share information and collaborate with other enthusiasts, other cloud enthusiasts. So, once again, remember that we have our community day that is slated for the 19th of August 2023, and it's going to be a hybrid event. We really encourage you all to attend in person, and as it's going to be very, very, very amazing. It's a West Africa wide event, and we expect to have amazing people there like you. We expect to have exceptional people. We're going to have breakout sessions, we're going to have games, we're going to network. You know what networking does to people? It gives you access to rooms that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get access to. So that's how important networking is. So do ensure you attend. If you can't attend in person, do ensure you join us virtually. And we're also seeking for volunteers to join us in preparing for the day. So if you think you have the capacity to volunteer and work to make that day a success, we're open. Please reach out to us on our social media platform, or reach out to me, Blessing Ogechi Nwojiji, on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I will be able to add you to the volunteer group and tell you the various areas that we need volunteers in to make that day a success. So imagine that you're volunteering and being part of the great team that will make such an event that is going to be West African wide. So you know what it's going to do for you. You're both positively impacting people, and then you're also networking and improving your knowledge in the cloud space. So thank you very much for attending today's session. We really appreciate you, David, for the
And
wonderful session.
before we go today, I just want to say a huge, 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 big thank you to you, Blessing. So for those that are joining that may not know, Blessing powers a lot of things behind the scene for the community. And there are so many things that Blessing does that I'm not saying this lightly, that in areas where Blessing covers is one of the areas that we all know we can go to rest. It's going to be excellent results. A lot of the social media um, campaigns and things that are done, Blessing powers all of that. And she's built an amazing team. She's doing an amazing thing. So again, Blessing, I want to say big, 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 big thank you to you. And of course, Blessing also has a YouTube channel. So make sure you check out Blessing's YouTube channel. She loves dancing. So check out her channel. Make sure you like her videos also and subscribe there.
I think I'm the one that is used to hyping people today. Imagine they beat me to my match. He's not allowed. Thank you very much, David, and thank you everyone that joined us for today's session. Ayobami, please do well to send us that email, and see you all next week as we have our final sessions. See you. Have a good night rest.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.